Welcome to today's Tea Time audio story. It's time to slow down, take a deep breath, and enjoy a moment just for you. As you sip your favorite tea, let your mind drift into the world of stories, where imagination comes alive and anything is possible. Listening to audio stories isn't just entertaining, it's also a wonderful way to relax, spark creativity, and improve your English in a natural and enjoyable way. Stories have the power to transport us to far-off places, introduce us to new characters, and remind us of life's little lessons. So whether you're here to unwind, learn something new, or simply enjoy a quiet escape, this is your time. Get comfortable, let your worries melt away, and allow today's story to take you on a journey. Let the magic begin. The days after Adrian's silence stretched into weeks, and Elise felt the weight of his absence in everything. In the untouched cup of coffee she still poured for him every morning out of habit. In the way she would glance at the bakery door, half expecting him to walk in. In the way she found herself lying awake at night, wondering if she had been foolish to believe that someone like Adrien Laurent could belong in her world. But he had made her believe. And now, he was gone. Camille, of course, had a lot to say about it. Enough, she declared one evening, snatching Elise's phone from her hands as she sat at the counter, staring at Adrian's last message from weeks ago. I miss you. Nothing since. Nothing to explain why he had disappeared. You are not a woman who waits around for a man to decide whether or not he's going to show up for you, Camille said, arms crossed. You deserve better than radio silence. Elise let out a sigh. I know. Camille narrowed her eyes. Then why are you torturing yourself? Because, Elise exhaled, rubbing her temples. Because for a little while, I thought he was showing up. He stayed, Cam. And then he didn't. Camille softened slightly. Then maybe it's time to let go. Maybe Camille was right. Maybe she needed to stop holding on to something that was already slipping through her fingers. So Elise decided that morning would be the first morning she wouldn't look at the door expecting him to walk in. And that was exactly the morning Adrien came back. It was raining, of course, it was raining. The universe seemed to have a flair for dramatics. The bell above the bakery door jingled, and Elise didn't even bother looking up at first. She was too busy kneading dough, forcing herself to focus on the feeling of flour beneath her hands, on the rhythm of something she could control. Then Camille let out a soft, knowing moan and stepped away from the counter. And Elise turned. And there he was. Drenched from the rain, still in his expensive coat, his hair slightly disheveled as if he had been running. He stood in the doorway, chest rising and falling, eyes locked on her like he wasn't sure if she would throw flour at him or listen to what he had to say. He looked different. Tired. But also like a man who had made a decision. Elise, he said, breathless. She crossed her arms. You have some nerve showing up here. Adrien let out a short, breathless laugh. I know. Silence stretched between them, thick with unsaid words. Then Elise exhaled sharply, shaking her head. Why now, Adrien? Why after all this time? He took a step forward. Because I was a coward. Because I told myself that I had to choose between you and the life I've always known. And that terrified me. She swallowed hard, refusing to let the way her heart pounded make this easy for him. And? Adrian's lips quirked in the faintest, self-deprecating smile. And I realized that my life means nothing without you in it. Something cracked inside her. But she wasn't ready to give in. Not yet. You can't just disappear for weeks and expect me to believe you mean that. I know, he said quietly. And I don't expect you to believe me. I came to prove it. She frowned. What do you mean? And then, to her absolute horror, Adrian reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a crumpled piece of paper, and unfolded it on the counter. Elise's eyes widened. It was her recipe. The one she had challenged him to create weeks ago. You, she blinked, looking from the paper to him. You actually tried to bake something. Adrian smirked. Try being the key word. And then, as if on cue, the bakery door opened again. In walked Luke, the teenage kitchen assistant who helped in the afternoons. But today, Luke wasn't alone. He was holding a box, one of Elise's own bakery boxes, and he looked slightly too amused as he placed it on the counter between them. Adrian cleared his throat. I might have bribed Luke into letting me borrow your kitchen last night. Elise looked at Luke, who was trying, and failing, to hold back a grin. You should see him when he concentrates, Luke muttered. Very serious. Very dramatic. Adrian shot him a look, and Luke wisely excused himself to the back of the bakery. Elise hesitated before opening the box. Inside, resting on parchment paper, was a tart. Dark chocolate with a slightly uneven crust. The edges weren't perfect. The chili-infused ganache wasn't as smooth as it should have been. But it was his. Adrian watched her closely. I know it's not nearly as good as yours, but... She picked up a fork, took a slow bite. And then another. And then she looked at him. You absolute idiot, she whispered. Adrian winced. That bad? She laughed softly, shaking her head. No, Adrian. You. Because this man, this infuriating man, had just walked into her bakery after disappearing for weeks and handed her a pastry he had made himself. A pastry he had learned to make for her. Her throat tightened. You never bake. Adrian exhaled, a slow, relieved breath. I do now. And just like that, every wall she had built crumbled. She reached across the counter, grabbed the lapels of his coat, and pulled him into a kiss. This time, he didn't hesitate. This time, he kissed her like he meant it, like he had spent every second apart from her realizing exactly what he wanted. The city outside kept moving, the rain continued to fall, but inside the little bakery, everything stood still. When they finally pulled apart, Elise shook her head. You're still an idiot. Adrian grinned. But I'm your idiot. She sighed, pressing her forehead against his. Yeah, she admitted softly. You are. Thank you for joining today's Tea Time story. We hope you enjoyed this journey into the world of imagination and storytelling. Whether it made you smile, sparked a new thought, or simply gave you a moment to relax, we're grateful to have shared this time with you. Thank you for listening and being part of our story time. Keep dreaming, keep imagining, and we'll see you again for another magical tale soon. Until next time, take care and happy listening.